Hello, Caravan Nation. My name is Aaron Hyler here on the Built on Dante podcast on the CBN. My special guest is no stranger to Mount Carmel. He's been working here for 33 years, class of 1987. Currently the vice principal and is teaching. He has a plethora of things he has done here at Mount Carmel. Bill Nolan, Mr. Nolan, how are we doing?
I'm doing great, Aaron. This is a privilege to be your first interview on the Built on Dante podcast. I've been around Mount Carmel a long time. I started in 1992. I was hired right out of college as a history teacher, and I was a baseball coach and a football coach. And I taught for a few years. I taught world history. I taught geography. And actually, my first year, I taught a sociology, psychology class to seniors, and I had 42 kids in the class. And it was in the room that is now the admissions room right now. That was a classroom.
In the basement?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
I've been all over the place.
Yeah, you have. So I got a question. So you said all these, you were teaching geography, history. So what made you want to get into education?
Well, you know what? When I was a sophomore, junior in high school, I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I was lucky. It was a blessing that I kind of had a path in my head where I wanted to go. And I would sit down with then head football coach Frank Lenti, who was my coach, and I told him I was interested in becoming a teacher and a coach. And he gave me some great insight. And and when I graduated from Carmel, I walked on and played football for a little bit at Illinois State University, the Harvard of the Midwest. And it's a great teaching school. It's probably the best high school, secondary teaching school in the Midwest. And I just enjoyed it, and then I knew I wanted to be a teacher. And I love history. I'm a history nerd. I'm more of a history nerd than a sports nerd.
Okay.
I love it. And when people always ask me, do you want to be a head football coach? I said no, because head football coaches have books about like Bear Bryant and playbooks next to their bed at night. I have biographies on Teddy Roosevelt. So I knew I wanted to coach. I knew I wanted to teach history, and I took that path. I student taught at Lincoln, Illinois, the Lincoln Rail Splitters, and I was able to come back, and I got hired. Father Joe Atcher hired me with Father Tim Andreas. They were the administration here in 1992, and I started out as I was an assistant on the sophomore football staff, and my staff I was with Mr. Antonetti. He was here for a couple years ahead of me. I was here with the legendary Kurt Ehrenstrom, who taught me more about life and teaching in a couple of years than anybody else in my whole life.
Yeah.
He just knew about life and teaching in Mount Carmel. A guy named Dan Fogelson and a guy named Wally Seabuck. And it changed my life. I loved every second of it. And it's so funny because my first team that I taught, sophomore football, Mr. Dan O'Connor was on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Mr. Dan O'Connor. And over the years, I taught many, like Mr. Panetera, Mr. O'Connor, and many dads. It's unbelievable how many dads of students that I taught or coached over the years. And then I was the head freshman baseball coach as well in the spring. So I was very busy.
Yeah.
And my career took me to many paths at Mount Carmel. After 4 or 5 years, I became the assistant dean.
Okay.
I was the assistant dean, and I got promoted to varsity football and baseball after like 2 or 3 years. Assistant dean, and as the assistant dean, I taught 3 or 4 classes, and I was head of transportation. So I did all the bus routes. I was Mr. Ferguson at the time.
Yeah.
Plus, I was the assistant dean, and plus I was teaching 3 or 4 classes. Plus, I was coaching 2 varsity sports.
You was doing a lot.
I was doing a lot.
Yeah.
And that lasted about 3 or 4 years, and then I became the director of admissions.
Okay.
And for 14, 15 years, I was the director of admissions. And I still coached varsity football and baseball for a little bit, but then in about 2001, 2002, when I was about to have my twin girls, I just went down to one sport. And, and I was director of admissions, and I loved it. It was a passion of mine. I could talk Mount Carmel all day, all night.
That's what we're here for, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I can do. That's my, people say find your passion in life, and my passion in life is Mount Carmel High School.
Yeah.
And I love everything about it. I love the good, the bad, the ugly. I love everything. And I truly believe the motto that's on the wall, and I think that's the most important thing that we produce at Mount Carmel we have phrases and we have lots of zeal and all of that. But the most important thing is you came to Mount Carmel as a boy.
Yeah.
If you care to work and struggle at it, you will leave as a man. And I believe that, and I think that's what we do better than anybody else in the state of Illinois and maybe the nation. We help develop leaders. We help develop men, and we're the foundation. And sometimes men need a kick in the butt along the way, and sometimes they need a hug, and sometimes they need them both on the same day. And I think we're very good at helping young men during the most important 4 years of development in their lives.
Okay, so you said you've done all these things. Was there ever a moment in life that you was like, I don't know, man. I've been at Mount Carmel all my life, I want to go to different aspects of life. I want to do new things, meet new people. Mount Carmel I've been seeing Mount Carmel all of my life. Have you ever wanted to go off into other schools, or are there different types of positions?
Yeah, there's been phone calls over the years about interest in going to other schools, becoming a head football coach here, or becoming an assistant at another school. And I thought about it, and you're tempted. You're tempted about exactly what you said. To meet new people, to have new challenges.
Right.
It always came back to what's my passion in life. And my passion in life has always been Mount Carmel. Well, there was a time a couple of years ago when I was done. I wanted to be done as the director of admissions. I did it for a long time, 14, 15 years. It's a burnout job. And I really loved every second of it, but it was time. It was time for me to go, and it was time for someone to come in with new ideas also, but it was time for me to get a new challenge at Mount Carmel. Mm-hmm. And I didn't really know where I was going to end up at Mount Carmel. I knew I was going to stay here, and then Mr. John Haggerty talked to me about becoming the assistant principal. And it was an opportunity of a lifetime. I love coming to work every day, and I love doing the little things all day long.
Yeah.
And that's what this job is. It's a lot of grunt work. It's a lot of picking up paper in the hallway. It's a lot about being here early to greet the kids. It's a lot about staying late for different functions. It's a lot of administering the lunches and supervising lunches and pep rallies and all those things. And it's really what I love, because I'm at Mount Carmel for the kids.
Right.
I'm here to be a part of this development, this transformation of these boys to men. And I feel right now I'm doing that at probably the closest level as I've ever done, because I'm with the kids all the time. I mean, believe me, I'm sure you guys are sick of my voice sometimes, but it's very fulfilling for me. And my daughters, I have twin daughters that are 20, they're in college now, and I get to live with women at home, and I get to have all my Mount Carmel, my experience with the Mount Carmel men during the day. And now on the weekends, I don't coach football anymore. A couple of years ago, I retired after 30 years, and almost every weekend we're visiting my girls, or my one daughter plays lacrosse, and we follow her playing lacrosse. So it's a new chapter in my life. But the best thing about it is I get to still have Mount Carmel in my life.
Okay, so when you were a kid at Mount Carmel, or a student, you said you knew when you was a sophomore that you wanted to do education and coming back to Mount Carmel. Yeah. Was there anybody that helped you? Was there Mr. Nolan, Mr. Ferguson? Was there anybody that actually mentored you and helped you get through the halls of Mount Carmel?
Well, yes. I mentioned Coach Frank Lenti.
Yeah.
There was Dave Lenti, who was very important to me in my development at Mount Carmel. There was other teachers. Father Mike O'Keefe.
Okay.
Was at Mount Carmel. He comes to lunch these days. And there's been a lot. There was teachers like Mr. Daly and Mr. Taylor and Coach Nick. Coach Nick was my baseball coach.
Okay.
You guys don't realize who Coach Nick is. I act like you know who he is. He just passed away this year, and he was my baseball coach at Carmel. Coach Ehringstrom was a young teacher here, and he was just incredible. I didn't know a teacher could be that cool, that young, and be that serious in the classroom. He was the best teacher in the school. And he was, 23 years old, and we were from the same neighborhood, the same grade school. We grew up 2 blocks apart from each other. And it was incredible seeing how he was able to connect with us at such a young age. And I knew that that was something I wanted to do. So there was many, many people that had a hand in my wanting to come back to Mount Carmel.
Yeah. Okay, so what made you come back to come to Carmel as a student? Was there I know you had legacy here. Your dad came here.
It was my father graduated in 1953.
Yeah.
I had 3 older brothers go to Mount Carmel.
Okay.
So, I guess when I was in 8th grade, my parents didn't put pressure on me. If I wanted to go to another high school, I could have went to another high school. I remember I almost went to another high school, a rival high school. It was very close. My grade school football coach had happened to move on to that high school and become the freshman coach there. And so I remember, God, I felt loyal to him. Do I go to this other high school?
Mm-hmm.
It was really one of the tougher times of my life because I knew deep down where I wanted to go.
Right.
I knew I wanted to go to Mount Carmel, but I really felt loyal to my grade school coach, Coach Blakely, and he finally let me off the hook. He came to my house and he could see how conflicted I was, and he said, "Follow your heart. I know it's okay. I don't have to coach you. If you want to go to Mount Carmel, then go to Mount Carmel." And it kind of he was a true mentor of mine. He passed away my freshman year, but he kind of let me off the hook and said, "Go to where your heart tells you." And then I went to Mount Carmel, and I haven't looked back since.
So how did you see yourself when would you grow up? How would you see yourself when you was little?
Oh man, that's such a good question. I saw myself as a coach.
Really?
Yeah, I saw myself as a teacher. As someone that was able to interact with the kids and talk history and and I knew I wanted to be a class that was fun and not just sitting there lecturing. I like to interact and talk to the kids. And I like to have days when it's like, okay, I'm going to tell you what college is like. I'm going to tell you about the mistakes I've made in my life and things like that. Those are the lessons you learn. And as a teacher, those are the ones that your students remember. They remember a lot of conversations you have, off the cuff, about how hard it was to get into college, or how at some point in your college career you can't visualize yourself. I remember there was a point in college where I'm like, I can't visualize myself as a teacher. I was like having I was having a big conflict in my head. And I kind of worked my way through that, and I had people that were like, "Yeah, you're going to be fine. Just keep the faith." I think that's the most important thing, was just to keep the faith and follow my heart and my gut.
Okay, so Mount Carmel isn't all sports and athletics. We are a Catholic school. Did Mount Carmel help you further or deepen your understanding of your faith?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, my commitment to Mount Carmel, but to my Catholic faith is very strong. Mm-hmm. Mount Carmel is a special relationship with Mary, with Our Lady of Mount Carmel, mm-hmm. and the scapular. I give a talk every year at the late night, the freshman late night, and I talk about my history with the scapular and my family tradition with the scapular. And I'll sum it up a little bit now. When I was 10 years old, I wanted the scapular. I wanted it because my older brothers had it. And, my mom's like, you know what, you were too young. And then when I was 10, 11 years old, my dad finally said, you can have a scapular. So I could be like my older brothers and my dad. And my dad was able to put the scapular on me, and he tied it on me. It was great. It was like I've had a scapular on for the rest of my life. If a scapular broke, I put it in my drawer, and I got another scapular. The longest I was ever without a scapular was when my dad was dying in the hospital.
Okay.
And I was able to, because when they brought him in, they cut off my dad's scapular. And right before he died, I was able to take my scapular off and put it on my father. Mm. And I saw that full circle of the relationship with the scapular. My dad gave me my first scapular, and I was able to give him his last. And so the scapular is a very important thing to me. It has a lot of religious importance to me. It has a lot of symbolic importance to me. And it has a lot of tradition and family, sentimentality, if you will. And it means a lot to the Nolan family. The Nolans, we were our scapulars. Yeah. And the scapular is very important to my brothers and my dad and my nephews who went to Mount Carmel and so on.
Can you give us the history of the scapular a little bit?
Well, the scapular is, and you're going to call me, you're going to put me on the spot here, but basically it was called by St. Simon Stock.
Okay.
Has the history of the scapular. And it was, presented to the Carmelites, I believe, as a way, as a dedication to Mary and our special relationship that we have with Jesus' mother, Mary, and Our Lady of Mount Carmel, who is Mary, and it's the special bond she has with the Carmelites and the Carmelite Saints. So that's where it began. But like as a little kid, you always hear that, if you wear the scapular, that if something happens to you, you go right to heaven. And I remember being like a kid going, you mean it's like a get out of jail free card?
Right.
Yeah, I just want to wear that scapular. And that's why I originally wanted to wear it. Because I'm going to heaven. You never know what's going to happen. And then it's like then I wanted to be like my brothers and my dad, and then it became my own symbol. It's my own commitment to Mary and my own commitment to Mount Carmel. And my daughters both have scapulars that they don't necessarily wear them, but they have scapulars they keep with them. That's in their dorm rooms now. And they keep them in a special place. So it's always important, and I'm able to hand it down to my kids.
Mount Carmel has changed through the years. Are you more of a person that goes with tradition or stays with tradition, be rooted in it? Or are you more of a person that likes to move on and like we can move on with the times to be more progressive?
Well, I think it's a combination.
Okay.
It's kind of that's not an all or nothing question.
Yeah.
I'm very in favor of tradition. I like tradition, but I like improvements.
Right.
I was here when it was just the old building.
Yeah.
And then, I was when they had added the Graham Center, when they added the Convocation Center and the McCarthy Wing and all those things. I love, change. I love improvement. How's that? Mm-hmm. I don't like change for the sake of change.
Just for added.
Yeah, don't change something just because you need to change it. Change it because it's going to improve it and make the experience better for people. It's gonna improve the quality of life. All those things. Just don't tell me we're going to change things just to change them. That doesn't make sense. I want change to improve the experience, and I am really a traditionalist at Mount Carmel. But times change, people change, the kids change. You guys you guys look the same. You're just like teenage boys were 30 years ago. I'm not kidding. But life changes and other influences change. When I started at Mount Carmel, there was no internet.
Right.
I didn't have my first cell phone at Mount Carmel until I was teaching here for almost 10 years. I think I got my first cell phone maybe in '99, so maybe I was here 7 years. I got my first email address when I was here for 5 years or 4 years. So that technology changed and developed, and it made life better in some cases. But it also now has, with all social media and all those things, it's a different experience for guys your age. And all that change in technology is good if it's used the proper way. But we also, as a teacher, I have to know that because you guys have you have different things that are in your brain now because you have to worry about social media. You have to worry about likes and dings and notifications and all those things.
Right.
And those distractions I didn't have. So I've had to change how I interact with kids a little bit as well. I have to change, there's different ways to motivate kids are different a little bit now. Not they're softer, but they need to be talked to in a little different tone.
Okay.
Back, when I was a student here, some teachers were, it's, my way or the highway, or, that you're going to listen to me or I'm going to pound it in your head type of thing.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore. That's not how we are. You have to work with kids and you have to be understanding because they have a lot of different pressures and a lot of different experiences that they're going through. And as a teacher, educator, as hopefully a mentor to some people, you have to understand these things. So I have changed greatly over the years, but I love the tradition of Mount Carmel because I think at the essence, Mount Carmel has never changed because our mission's always been the same, and we're going to take these boys and help them develop into men.
Okay.
The methodology has changed a little bit, right? We had to tweak it over the years, like back in the 50s, they paddled students and they hit students. You don't do that now.
Exactly.
We know that's ridiculous now. Even to think about that, it's ridiculous. But in essence, we still have the same goal as those teachers did back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, so on. We want to help develop these boys into men, and that's always been at the heart of what Mount Carmel is.
Okay. Was working here at Mount Carmel ever been overwhelming? Has it ever been like you didn't want to do it anymore?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's burnout times, right? And that's why I'll tell you what, I love working in a school because there is that natural cyclical nature of working in a school. There's that birth at the beginning, like in August. Everyone has a lot of enthusiasm, and you get that break in December for Christmas break to kind of recharge the batteries.
Right.
And then it's like it's a race to the finish line at the end in May, and everyone's like just exhausted, and you get that whole summer just to kind of take a deep breath and live it. It's overwhelming at times, and you get to just step back and take a deep breath. I mean, I remember at times when I was teaching, I was coaching varsity football, I was admissions director, and I had 2 babies. That was incredibly stressful.
Right, it's a lot.
And thank God my wife is the greatest person I know I've ever met. And she knew she was the wife of a football coach and a teacher, and that's what she knew she was going to be. And she has a great career on her own. And but she was very supportive, and there was never a time when she's like, "You need to leave there," because she knew this is what made me tick. She knew that this was one of the most, besides her and my daughters, the most important thing in our lives.
I hear you talk about your personal life. Is there anything, if you weren't at Mount Carmel, which you have been for your whole life, if you weren't at Mount Carmel, what would you be doing?
Oh, you know what? That's a great question. I can't see myself not being a teacher of some kind. Maybe I would be in government.
Okay.
I like to work with people. Maybe I would be in government in some shape or form. I like the mechanics of government. I'm interested in how government works. Possibly government, but I can't see myself away from some kind of school or some kind of institution like a college or a high school.
Do you see, is your personal life, is there like a boundary there, or do you combine it with Mount Carmel?
Well, it's so kind of funny. For a long time, our personal life was Mount Carmel. Like Mr. Antonetti and his wife and their kids are like best friends with us. My wife is like best friends with Mrs. Antonetti. Are really good friends, and we live 3 blocks away, and we both have sets of twins the same age. And I've seen his kids grow since they were babies, and he has older boys. And a big part of our social life has always been Mount Carmel. Very close to a lot of the teachers and coaches that have come through Mount Carmel. But there is a time. We have our people that aren't Mount Carmel. So there is a separation of our personal lives, but we have a very, very strong connection to the people that have been at Mount Carmel, and so do my wife and kids. It's family. In a lot of ways, it's an extension of our family. We have this Mount Carmel family we've always had. And even though a lot of them have gone, we still are very close to them. We still get together on the holidays and things like that. But our bond began at Mount Carmel when we were both teaching here or coaching here.
I know this might be a hard question to ask, but is there one moment that is your favorite Mount Carmel moment? It could be a teaching, student, a missions director, any moment that is your favorite.
Wow. You're really putting me on the spot here.
You're doing a good job.
You know what? I think I have it. God, there's been so many great moments. In 1996, coaching football, and we won the state championship a year after. It was my first state championship as a coach, but it was a year after we had lost Kevin Dowling, who died his senior year, but in 1995. And we lost him at the beginning of the year in August of 95. And then we went on and we lost the state championship. And it was there was such an overwhelming feeling of emptiness and guilt for losing Kevin, but then like feeling like you let him down by not winning it in 95.
Yeah.
And then we took the mission on and we went undefeated and won it in 96. And when the game was over, the kids all took off their shirts and they had their yellow Kevin Dowling jerseys.
You were teaching then?
I was teaching and coaching.
Yeah.
I was a coach. I was on the varsity. I was 27 years old. But that was probably that's up there. Just put it that way, is one of the greatest moments.
You can do another moment if you want to. Go ahead.
There was a moment the other night. I'll tell you. There was a reunion with the class of '99.
I saw that.
Here.
Yeah, I saw that.
So one of my favorite, students, players, this Tony Fulton was. I coached him for 2 years, and we were very close, and we still in contact afterwards. He told me he was running a marathon in Berlin.
Okay.
He told me this the other night. He was running a marathon in Berlin, and he thought of me. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, because you always used to say something when we were talking about the Cold War and we talked about the city of Berlin. He goes, I would describe Berlin after World War II or West Berlin, as a island of democracy in a sea of communism. That's just how I would say it. And he goes, as he was running the marathon, this is 30 years after I had him in class, or 28 years after I had him in class. He said he was running from East to West Germany going, I'm in the sea of communism. I'm in the sea of democracy. And he said he heard my voice say that as he was running the marathon. And so that, for me, that was like one of the coolest moments I remember in a long time.
Yeah, you make a big impact in Mount Carmel. I don't know if you noticed that, but you do make a big impact on people. People remember you in Berlin. I'm sure some of your students.
Yeah.
I remember you. Some of your team is remembering you. Do you think that people have ever had a bad impact from you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what is it?
But there's, sometimes I've had knee-jerk reactions when I was a younger teacher, especially, and maybe I maybe yelled or embarrassed a kid when it wasn't really, I should have. And then I've learned from that. And I'm sure there's kids out there that they hate Coach Nolan,
Yeah.
And I know once in a while I'll be at a restaurant or something and someone will kind of give me a scowl because I found out I cut him from freshman baseball in 1994 freshman baseball in 95. So I'm sure there are. There's good and bad and everything.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
Right.
Nobody's loved by everyone. But I guess at the end of the day, I want to be remembered as someone that cared about the students at Mount Carmel.
When people come back to see Mount Carmel, are you ever surprised? What's your big reaction when you see these people? It could be alumni, people that you work with.
It's just great seeing them. I saw one of my students today. The guys I coached, whose son is very sick, and he was back here, shopping at Mount Carmel because he wanted to get his son a Mount Carmel shirt.
Okay.
And he's like, he gave me a big hug and I asked him how his son was doing. He's like, we're fighting. And he goes, I'm going to bring my son to the Joliet Catholic game in a couple of weeks. I'm like, I can't wait to see him.
Yeah.
We're going to get him on the field. So that sort of thing is good. And what really makes me good is that if somebody needs something from Mount Carmel or they have a question about Mount Carmel, a lot of times they contact me. They contact other people, lots of other people. Mm-hmm. But there's a certain group of people that they contact me when they need something from Mount Carmel. And that makes me feel really good. That makes me feel important, or important's the wrong word, makes me feel useful.
Yeah.
Where I can help people out in time of need. Like, somebody's family member passed away, and what they really wanted was to get scapulars for the casket. And they call me at 10 o'clock at night, and I have scapulars all the time, and I'm able to give them scapulars. That's an awesome feeling.
Yeah.
That's an awesome feeling to be able to help someone in their time of need.
Yeah, that's great that you're making that Mount Carmel is allowing you to have those type of feelings, have those type of emotions, meet the people. We got to close here in a minute.
Yep.
So I want to leave the audience, students, teachers, I want to leave them with some encouragement. Do you have any type of advice, a quote? I know we have a lot of quotes around school. Do you have any words of encouragement?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, hard work works, and I'm stealing that from 100 coaches before me. But if you want something, you got to have a vision of how you want to get it. It's you don't want anything just handed to you. You want to work for it and earn it, because there's no better feeling in the world than having a game plan and busting your butt for something. Whether it's a test, whether it's starting on a baseball team, whether it's making the lacrosse team, whatever it is. And what's your goal? And if your goal, and you have a game plan to work every day to get better, to study for this physics test, whatever that goal is, to have that vision quest, and to achieve that vision quest, there's no better feeling.
Yeah.
You have that sense of accomplishment. And a couple things that I always tell my students, and they'll recognize this. Safety's no accident. Think about that.
Safety is no accident.
And I tell my students every day, every Friday before they leave for the weekend, I tell them to make good decisions, and that safety's no accident. And if you're bitter, change the I to an E and make it better.
Okay.
And what's the biggest room in the house?
Well, I don't know.
Room for improvement.
Room for improvement. Okay. All right, Mr. Nolan.
All right.
Well, that was Mr. Nolan, class of 87.
The great class of 1987.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there we go. My name is Aaron Hyler. This was Built on Dante podcast. Thank you for being here. You're a great guest. Great, no stranger to Mount Carmel. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
Thank you.
Great.